So we caucus, right, about what the hell to do. We come to a consensus, right? We solicit each other's opinions, and now we present that like a united front, is what I hear you saying. How does that feel?
Much better.
Yeah.
Feels like teamwork.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to me to safety, right? So I know what you're saying is that historically, I would be too fast abandoning you, right? And yet I would tell myself a story, you've abandoned me because you were marinating. I mean, let's be real though, you are like a freaking 2-week marinator. It's
I'm like a good wine.
pretty short. I think it's turned. I think the wine is turned on your process, not gonna lie.
I'm vintage.
I think that shit is kombucha, but at any rate. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with Thomas Miller. Are you tired of your tweens, teens, and young adults' negative behaviors and poor choices holding you emotionally hostage, controlling your family, and ruling your life? If you answered yes, then you are in the right place. This podcast is a community for courageous parents just like you who come here to gain effective tools, skills, and take action so they can change their tween, teen, or young adult's life and improve their family's future. Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. Today's topic is one parent too firm, one parent too soft. If you're listening and you can identify, then you know what the hell I'm talking about. But basically what I'm talking about is when you have two different parent styles colliding, and how the heck do you co-parent? I happen to have my awesome, amazing wife with me, who I figured who better than her and I to kind of hash this out. Maybe in the next 30 some odd minutes, we'll actually solve this issue because we certainly get polarized. And I'm so happy to have her so that we can get into basically trying to provide for y'all basically a pathway forward. And we'll definitely share a bunch of our bang-ups and hang-ups and dissimilarities and how we've moved through them. And
it's kind of like a blooper reel.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have not solved and hacked it entirely, or cracked it, I should say, not hacked it. We haven't cracked the code, but we will get into some parenting hacks that have been super helpful. Believe it or not, we've been together since 1998.
Wow.
Taking it back.
Feels like yesterday.
Does it? No, it does not. We met at Long Island University.
LIU.
If you don't know that reference, that is.
We're dancing.
We're dancing, yeah. A lot of going on Long Island. You got to love it. Big up to Strong Isle. Any Strong Islanders listening? Thank you, first off, for all the super fans that have been with us since the jump. And I just so appreciate all of you. And I hope that you are getting value out of the Four Peaks Parents community, because we're doing this, and I'm doing this mainly, right, of course, to help y'all with the craziest, hardest job in the world. We have a bunch of really cool guests coming up. We have a woman who is an expert in eating disorders, which is super important, right, for any parent out there who has a child struggling with body image or anorexia nervosa or bulimia, or just may have some challenges around eating or just body image, or so on and so forth. And then I have another person coming up who is a consultant who helps a lot of my families actually find therapeutic placement. So I'm just doing everything I can to throw everything in the kitchen sink at y'all so that you can be that much more informed, that much more empowered, that much more resourced. So again, you can help your teen, tween, or young adult navigate and be as healthy as possible and say peace out to dysfunction. So back to the topic at hand. One parent too firm, one parent too soft. Who might that be?
Well, if your viewers listen to your pot roast or fried chicken episode, they may know the answer.
Well, who are you? Own your side of the coin here.
A softie.
And how has, well, tell people more what that exactly looks like or feels like, or on a day-to-day or week-in and week-out basis.
Well, I think that I'm often trying to stand in people's shoes a little too much. And I find that I'm often leaning towards our children's discomfort or whatever the argument or the issue is, and I'm putting myself in their situation, and then I start saying, "Well, but what if?" or maybe blah blah blah, and all that kind of moves me away from the issue, and it doesn't help me be more direct with the problem at hand.
Mm.
And ends up making me the softer one that will like lean into or give in or say it's okay or you can sleep for a day. You didn't sleep last night and you don't have to do chores.
Mm.
Things like that. I'm not that
So
bad though.
you're not that bad. I think that's an over exaggeration of you don't have to do chores for a day.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that one of your superpowers is also your weakness, which is you do have the ability to take our kiddos' perspectives, or people in general, you do have the ability to flow a lot of empathy toward other people's ways, which is great. And that's one of the reasons I love you, of course. However, how does that trip you up? And of course, we'll get into my too firm crap and how that trips us up and also robs from the overall wellness of the family. So this is not just you in the hot seat here. But how does that trip you up sometime, that over-identification with the child's experience, let's say, or that, like we just talked about, over-empathizing? How does that kind of F you up a little bit?
Right. And I think we've also talked about how one of my roles, good or bad, is to protect the kids' egos. And oftentimes I'm thinking more about how they're feeling versus what needs to happen.
Where did you learn that? That topic of protecting their ego?
I don't know. It might have been couples therapy.
Couples therapy, which is this is our
Shout out to couples therapy.
shout out, yeah, big up to couples therapy. This is our third go around, and I would say of all those experiences, we definitely gained a lot from each of them. There was one that was mid, as the kids to try to be cool. I would say one therapist was kind of mid. It's hard being a therapist and being in therapy sometimes, and you have to take that professional hat off and not evaluate the person who is But we got a lot out of all of those experiences, because just even yesterday we were in therapy and we were sitting down, and it was funny. We were like, "Oh, hey, how are you? How it's nice to see you." Like, it's kind of become so pathetic that therapy becomes a time, to just even sit and like actually complete a sentence, right? When you don't have two crazy kids running around and you actually could like make eye contact. And
yeah, we pay for a conversation.
No, but it's good. It's good to have that 360 panorama. And I'm a huge fan, Avi, as a parent coach and as a therapist as well, for all the families that are brave enough and courageous enough to take a look at themselves and recognize, we're maybe things are okay, but they're definitely not good and they're definitely not great. So big up to all the current parents. Woo-hoo, big shout out to all the current parents that are either working the Four Peaks parent program as we speak, either in the individual model or the group model. Just rolled out another group, which is so exciting. That was primarily parents of tweens. That's super cool. We're starting program's growing so much that I can really individuate the heck out of it. Now we have groups for tweens, we have groups for teens, we have groups for the failing to launch as well.
Have you come up with a cool name for your peak people? Like peakers?
Yeah.
Like the 46ers?
The peakers. That sounds kind of like tweakers, though. That might be like too much of a throwback
to the Blinders.
Oh, there you go.
Shout out. Peaky Blinders.
I love that shit. So too much ADHD going on right now. So back to us. So when you go to soft, right, and you kind of do what I find is that you almost over-explain for the children, if you will. You're providing a context that may or may not be there, right? It's great to overlay that perspective and try to put ourselves in their shoes and try to think or feel with them. Big fan, right? I don't think I'm a sociopath last time I checked, right? So I do have the capacity for guilt and remorse and feeling. I'd be a really bad parent coach or a really bad therapist if I couldn't feel with people. But as you were just saying, it takes you off mission sometimes of maybe focusing in on the behavior, the choice, or the habit or the pattern that needs to get exhausted. And how does that usually go in our dynamic?
Terrible, because I'm leaning out, so then you have to lean in more, and then that makes you heavier than you need to be. But I think, another thing is when I'm leaning out, quote unquote, another thing that I'm doing is I'm actually like waiting to see, well, what can happen? Will this choice be resolved on their own? And again, making me the pot roast. I'm sitting there kind of observing and hoping that people will put on their adult hats, not us, the kids, that they'll make the better choice. And I think that you see the choice happening or the behavior, and there's no waiting, there's correction to be made.
Which is, again, my fault and my bad, and that's the piece I
I'm
have
not
to
saying it's
work
a bad
on.
thing.
Well, I see things, right? I'm paid to see dynamics in real time and to address them quickly. I mean, that's always the gift and the curse here, right? Is I go into families almost like SEAL Team 6, right? Able to quickly assess what's going on and be able to have that command to be able to say, okay, well, this is where we need to go, and we're gonna, storm that hill, if you will, right? When I work with families, my first job is to immediately audit. Hence, the first peak of the Four Peaks Parents Program is called the Family Audit, which is beyond just simply looking at the symptoms. It's looking at the system. What is ostensibly driving this dysfunctionality or this chaos or this imbalance, and what ultimately, if we kind of track the trickle back to its source, what is creating that? So yes, that is something, unfortunately and or fortunately, I bring at times to our family, because I can quickly see the domino effect and who and or what is driving it. And then I want to kind of eradicate it, right? I want to exhaust it.
You're the fortune teller.
Yeah. Well, I think I see the trajectory of that and where is it going to be. And the thing that drives me nuts, which is why I know why I built the Four Peaks Parents Program, is that I want to help families create shift. And there's a cost of inaction. And if they don't act, right, these things are going to get, these symptoms, these issues, these patterns, these habits are only going to get worse. So sometimes I bring that energy, that zeal, that lust, if you will, for positive change to our dynamic. And that's my bad. I need to be way more slower, right, to jump in there. And you do a way better job. Pot roasting is not all bad, and fried chicken is obviously not all bad, but there's strengths and weaknesses in there. And my process, I'm too fast, I think, to try to address things. You're, I think, too slow. But I do need a bit more of, like you just said, kind of sitting back, seeing how things unfold, and not having to be so out in front. Because I think for me, I feel abandoned sometimes by you when you underparent or underreact or are too soft. And because I'm a sensitive guy, right? Hence my gift to this world is I'm an empath, but I also sometimes personalize and take things on. And then now we're really, in a turbulent, unconnected or disconnected dynamic, and then we're kind of more dangerous, if you will, right? If I'm feeling abandoned, now all of a sudden I'm actually a little scared, right? Now, like you just said, my hammer, my firmness, if you will, right, is kind of over the top. So how have we gotten out of that? I mean, are we out of that? I don't know.
Oh, we fall back in, but we're aware. And I think being aware is key, because then you can pause in your tracks and be like, oh, I remember this. We've talked about this. But that's why we've come up with a couple, or you've come up with, not me, a couple wonderful tools and things for people to think about as they catch themselves in dynamics.
Well, what do we do better than when we used to? I mean, because I know, oh my God, I've definitely said some things I wish I could take back, but I know that I used to think of you in this kind of black and white, all or nothing way when it comes to your parenting, and lacked nuance in terms of how I looked at you. And then I was too quick to jump in, and then I would be so quick to jump in, and then again, feeling abandoned, but I didn't give you the opportunity to really jump in there because I was too fast and I did kind of take over. And, one of the things that I pride myself on with the families I work with is to get them out of using words like always and never, or viewing their partner, if they have a co-partner, in this monolithic way or black and white way, right? So really a stretching and allowing, right, and tolerating the ambiguity, so that whether it's their 20-something loved one who is struggling with substances actually shows, let's say, some moments of sobriety or moments of regulation, or actually does get the part-time job, that the family isn't so crispy and cooked that they're not able to internalize that and say, oh my God, look at Johnny, or look at, so-and-so. they're actually kind of stepping forward. It's so hard sometimes to catch our loved one or our partner doing a changed behavior because we're crispy and we have compassion fatigue. So I think for me, I know that's been really a helpful thing, is to clear out the goggles and start seeing you kind of in the here and now, or in real time, versus holding on to these old adages or mantras or paradigms of who you are that haven't really been helpful, right? So that's something for me. What's the thing that's been really helpful for you to help us kind of get out of some stupid crap and unhealthy dynamics?
I think I know that you're looking for action. So sometimes when something's brewing, I instead of pot roasting, I kind of like pick up my head and look around and think like, what can I do that will start to rewrite this ship now, or show that I am attentive to the issue at hand, whether that's like stepping in and making minor corrections, or using a what do you call them? What if statements? No, not what ifs.
You mean like
Either or, one
like
of
an
your
either
either, yeah,
or an I
or an
statement, or
observation.
make an
But like some
observation?
of those things, I know by engaging in them that you are gonna then see that I am alert and I do understand there's a problem at hand, and that I am not just idling, and that I can, I can start to lean towards you in that direction.
And that's huge, right? Because, like, let's be real, at the end of the day, so many poor parenting choices that we've made and all the families that I coach have made come from fear, come from not feeling safe in that moment. And whether it's a parent that is looking the other way and numbing themselves out with a lot of fantasy or myths about, their kid will just grow out of said pattern, or it's only, it's my favorite. I was just talking to a family the other day. They're like, oh, it's only alcohol. It's just, right, marijuana, which is the moment you put only and just in front of anything, it's minimization. Or it's a family that is yelling and screaming, or it's a family that is making threats. All those families are trying to create safety. They're going about it in highly ineffectual ways. And when I have certainly, again, been way too quick and way too leaning toward control, that's about me trying to create safety. So for you to recognize, hey, there's some crap brewing with the kids, and historically I would sit back and allow this to manifest until it got a little kind of too much. Let me now put myself also in Thomas's shoes. Let me also try to think about what is a co-created norms for us. So you have to speed up and expedite, if you will, your parenting process. I have to now, right, sit back, put a pause between impulse and action, and allow you to parent. And that feels great to me. I don't know if it feels great to you yet, but the point is that I hope you could see the value, right, of us co-parenting together. That creates so much more safety. I don't want to be out in front. I actually hate that. And then I even used to tell myself a story, even if I did all the parenting, it set up a dynamic where I got to play the victim almost, right? And tell myself a story yet again. Here I am, right, on the cross, or carrying the cross, right? Doing all the work. Where's my wife, right? So it means a
Eating
lot.
bonbons, just
It
kidding.
means a lot. It means, no, seriously, it means a lot. I think it means a lot to the kids too,
They're still
because
bonbons.
I think what happens in all families, ours as well, is these dynamics get like hard baked. And then the kids are just like waiting for me, right? And they know they can kind of walk all over you, which doesn't feel good, I don't think, to you underneath. And I don't think it feels good. I know it doesn't feel good to me. And then we have this dynamic where I'm set up to be the heavy. And again, I have to take 100% responsibility for any choice I've ever made. Will never blame shift and export, responsibility to anybody. But it means a lot. The fact that you're now parenting up a little more, up leveling your parenting, right? Being more proactive in your parenting. That means a lot. That creates a lot of balance. And I really appreciate that. And that creates safety for me and allows me to kind of provide nuance. I don't want to just be the one trick pony, Thor hammer dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I have a question for you regarding your family audit that I know you do with families. I'm thinking about, understanding where people's family norms come from and how they were raised and how they bring that into their own parenting style. But as I'm thinking about that, I'm curious, if you talk about or take in consideration how people's work life plays a role. For instance, I'm a teacher. So I'm just picturing myself in my classroom all day and dealing with multiple personalities and different types of parenting, quote unquote, of getting people to do the right thing in the classroom all day long. And I come home and sometimes I look at what my kids are doing and I'm like, hey, that's a lot better than what I dealt with today. They're on a good track versus you coming in and maybe working with CEOs or working with some people who are, displaying different types of behaviors that are maybe more favorable, and then seeing a behavior brewing and thinking like, that's not the track to get to where we need to go. Do you ever talk
Yeah,
about?
that's a really good point. I mean, I think what you're saying is, yes, childhood norms absolutely rear their head in many ways, right? We can come from a chaotic family, and I've seen parents swing the pendulum way too hard in the other direction, where the moment, the child farts or something, the parent is going through that fight or flight of thinking that they're back kind of in their own childhood again with chaos brewing, and they may swing it so hard where the kids can't, I don't even know, color or again fart or laugh
Farts can do that.
or
That's what
whatever,
you eat.
right? The same is true. I think what you're saying about work is that yeah, we have these norms, for 8 hours or 10 hours or 9 hours or 6 hours, whatever our workday looks like. And it's easy to show up burnt to the hardest job in the world. And I talk a lot in this podcast about give yourself that moment, whether it's in the car in the driveway or before you even get in the car, and transition out of work to really just take that breath, drop that shoulders, maybe scrunch your face if you need to, scrunch your glutes or your calves, and just breathe in, breathe out, maybe do some quad breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. Whatever you need to do to make sure you're showing up as mom or dad. I think what you're saying too is that, first off, everyone I work with is not perfect, and there are a bazillion dysfunctional norms that are brewing in households of the parents that I coach and are in the Four Peaks Parents Program. But there are also, yes, maybe I am not as surrounded by. Well, I don't even think that's true. I'm not surrounded as in I'm not in the classroom. So I hear what you're saying, that you are juxtaposing our kids' behavior against some of the kids that have some challenging, right, emotional control or behavioral choices in the classroom. And I think what you're bringing up, which is a good point, is we just have to get on the same page about our expectations and what ostensibly is the gunshot wound versus the sprained ankle. And I think that's so key for any parent, is to communicate and openly, right, about your expectations, to really create co-created norms. So yes, in the first peak of the program, the Family Audit, we talk about what are the norms from our childhoods we need to get the hell out of the system, like ASAP, right? What are the norms we want to keep? And then how do we blend? It's like two nations, right, coming together to try to create a third nation. And we do come from extremely different
Nations.
nations, right? As our therapist says all the time, it's really funny. It's kind of like, it's sometimes the most obvious shit, that like a therapist or a coach, parent coach, or a leader or mentor says, and you're like, oh yeah, and he says all the time, like opposites attract, right? And that we are very different in many ways. So, and yet I know this, right? But then it's just kind of really funny when you hear it. What do you see as another kind of thing we've learned along the way? We've been married now, which is crazy, for holy crap, 21 years. We now have a 15-year-old and soon to be 13-year-old. What are some other, and again, we still fall into traps for sure, but what are some other holes, let's say, in the sidewalk that we fall into, or used to fall into, I should say, that we get out of faster?
Well, something I think that we're doing a lot better is oftentimes one parent or the other would kind of lay down the law without checking in with the other parent
Who is
first.
that?
I'm not going to name names.
There's
Be a
only
third party in
there's
this
only
room.
two people here. Our dog has left the room.
We'd be in a conversation or dealing parenting, and all of a sudden this new law gets laid down, and I'm like, wait, what? That's the law. And as a respectful partner, I try to stand in solidarity with that law, but I might not agree with that law or didn't get to marinate because, I like to marinate. Didn't get to marinate on it. And so I'm left marinating while it's put into play. And then I'm kind of stuck there. And I don't get to move forward with the new law because I haven't accepted the new law myself and come to terms with it because I haven't marinated around the pros and cons of it and played it out in my head. So what we've been doing, which is a lot better, is that you will say, or I will say, hey, let me talk to mom about this, and we're going to come up with a consequence, or we're going to come up with an outcome, or we're going to come up with the expectation. And so that way we get to like huddle and be like, all right, you're going to go left, and then I'm going to go right, and I'm going to pass the ball, and blah, blah, blah. No, just kidding. We don't do football.
I get what you're saying. Totally.
And then we're able to come together in a collective voice and stand in solidarity with what we've laid out. But it's remembering to not react quickly and set down a law, but to caucus and then come back.
And how does that feel when we caucus, which is such a weird
Feels
word?
like
I do love that word. When we caucus and then create consensus, that's a lot of C's. What is that, alliteration or assonance?
You're asking the wrong person.
I don't know. But anyway, the repetition of consonant sounds. So when we caucus and we create a consensus, and then we put something. Yeah, no, it's too many. So we caucus, right, about what the hell to do. We come to a consensus, right? We solicit each other's opinions, and now we present that like a united front, is what I hear you saying. How does that feel?
Much better.
Yeah.
Feels like teamwork.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to me to safety, right? So I know what you're saying is that historically, I would be too fast abandoning you, right? And yet I would tell myself a story, you've abandoned me because you were marinating. I mean, let's be real though, you are like a freaking 2-week marinator. It's
I'm like a good wine.
Pretty short. I think it's turned. I think the wine is turned on your process, not gonna lie.
I'm vintage.
I think that shit is kombucha. But at any rate,
I do like kombucha.
But I think what we're identifying here, which is so important, is not abandoning the partner and really getting together and creating that solidarity. And that's hard because that means each partner's got to shave off a little bit of their process to create this like beautiful, co-written, right? Co-fabulated, I'm on the C's now. I don't even know if it's the word.
This episode is sponsored by C.
The letter C, yeah. Right, to have that, to put that into play, like you just said, without it feeling like, oh shit, unconsciously, I don't really support this, but I gotta support this so Thomas feels supported. That must feel really disingenuous, right? And on the flip side, when I'm like, sitting there waiting as she's marinating, for 85 years, that doesn't feel good either, because now it's like, crap, now I gotta step in and I gotta do this. So I think that symbiosis is really important too, this like beautiful dance. And it's so easy to get split because, let's be real, we have teens, right? And the parents I work with have, oh my God, a 22-year-old that might be vaping and smoking pot and or using drugs, or they might have a 16-year-old who is functioning exactly like that person who's struggling with addiction issues because they haven't slept, they're staying up to 2, 3 in the morning. Or you have a child with OCD who is seeking reassurance and accommodation, or there's a teen that, again, is dealing with true anxiety and depression, organic, mental health issues, but also is not regulated at all with their phone use. And so they're functioning like an addict as well. And they're lacking, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and they're not regulated and they're not eating, and whether there is or isn't eating issues, their whole lifestyle is out of whack. So of course it's so hard to do what we're talking about because our kids, right, will come to us when it's urgent for them, when it's convenient for them. And they're always going to get us at our weakest, right? They're always going to get us when we're super freaking tired or we don't have any, wax left, right? And it's so easy for one parent, if again, it's a co-parenting situation, to kind of just get marooned on that island. And next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, I did say yes, or I did say no, or I did, buy into that thing. So slowing the fudge down, which we talk about all the time in the 4 Peaks parents, STFD, slow the fudge. There's another F word in there you could say if you don't like the word fudge. Whatever works for you, slow the beep down and get with that partner, right? Text, hey, this is coming down the pike. We need to really staff up about this. Let's present that united front. Or even grabbing your partner and taking them offline and saying like, hey, I noticed that, you've been, if it's me, the me character in your dynamic, you've been a little too out in front. You've been kind of leaving me in the dust. You haven't really caucused and created consensus enough. Or me going to the pot roast parent and saying, hey, you kind of slip back into that vintage wine moment again, where you're just marinating way too freaking much. It would mean a lot to me if you could be more proactive. All those things can really create a shift.
I want to notice too that sometimes in that change, there's a change in parenting. Like in the beginning, when you're a new parent, you're like based off of intuition. And I was like, I think one of my strengths was that I was very good at following my intuition as a new mother and like reading my baby and understanding what they needed. And it slowly shifts from 100% physical, right? Parenting, diapers, burping, feeding, sleeping, to, now your cognitive parenting starts to trickle in. You have to start teaching right from wrong and yes and no and how you behave and this and that. And then sometime when you get into the teens, you're heavier on that. You're more, now they're hopefully doing all that stuff themselves, right? And I think when you invite, what the rule is and the structure, and you lay down a rule real quick, that doesn't follow what the intuition is naturally, what you're being driven towards. You're asked to play a role of a part of a character that you're assigning because you're saying, this is what we're doing. And so now you have to step into following that rule if you haven't caucused and you haven't come up with some kind of parallel pathway. So I think coming together and making sure that you do have that pathway allows you to both feel that you're true to yourself and you're not putting on a facade and trying to stand on this role that you don't really believe in or see.
And what I like there too is that, and I talk about this in the last podcast, right? I'm no longer the captain, I'm the lighthouse, which is definitely was a hard shift for me, right? As you go from being a bit more directive when your kids are younger, right? You could say, because I said so, right? You could say, which is actually a really appropriate response, total side note. If you say, no to a child who's, let's say, 7, and they say, how come? Because it's their second ice cream, and you say, because I said so, right? You don't have to explain to a 7, 8-year-old why they should not have 3 ice creams, right? Particularly if they didn't eat their dinner, but that's a whole other show. But moving or transitioning from being the captain to the lighthouse happens with teens. And it's really funny where I absolutely stand by the statement of parenting is not a democracy. That being said, as children become older and older and you have teens or obviously young adults, it needs to be way more democratic. We need to invite them to the big table, if you will, and begin to solicit their feedback. So what I like you're saying, Nicole, is rather than just having these arbitrary rules or these very myopic ways of relating to your kids, we need to be much more relational and invite them into, right, dialogues. And that's why in the program, I'm teaching families all the time, particularly in the second peak, which is called emotional mastery, on how to be the master of your own emotions so that you can guide your children to also feel uncomfortable feelings and have uncomfortable conversations without everyone losing their crap, right? And remaining emotionally regulated. So the more that we can invite our kids to change, invite our kids into the dialogue, into the relationality, the more that we're going to be a cog in that machine and be able to guide, influence, etc. As we're coming to the end, anything you want to, quick little tip, golden nugget you've learned along the way
Golden nugget.
to stay out of the getting split?
I'm going to split us by saying this. I think you're 100% right by saying because I said so is a very important law to lay down at a very early age, because kids need to just know that you're the leader and they need to just respect that's what it is without having to know, because that will bring you further down the way with understanding that you're in charge. However, prior to those actions happening, I always overloaded the kids with information because I wanted them to learn. Really, it wasn't because I was trying to set behaviors up or down. But I think that clarity is kindness. as a wise person always says, not in the room with me. No, and when if you're gonna go get ice cream, you can front load that and be like, hey, we're getting one ice cream because one, we one's enough, and we don't want too much sugar. We're gonna be up all night, whatever the quick little soundbite is about that. But you front loaded that so that way when they say, I want another one, nope, one, we're done. And then they already have that information, they can remember it, but you don't need to kind of keep rotating around it.
Yeah, and I think that's the evolution that I've seen you go through and develop, which I'm really grateful, is that you are an explainer because you are an educator. And I think sometimes you gave too much information, and you do such a better job giving really clear, cogent information and context. So what I hear you saying, which is really important, is provide your kids with some context as to why you're making that decision. And I completely concur, as the kids get older, because I said so is not sufficient, and there needs to be a deeper kind of conversation. That doesn't mean we allow our kids to negotiate. I'm the biggest fan of, again, once you kind of set a limit or a boundary, it's totally fine to hold that and allow your kid to have whatever emotional outburst or dysregulation they want to. That should never change, right? If that decision was made based on a really good process of, again, the consensus or the caucus that created the consensus, and then you hold firm. It's been great having you on this show. I just want to leave our listeners with a couple of quick tips to avoid the classic too firm and too soft dynamic. Number one, as I think we covered in this podcast, Nicole and I, is make sure you communicate so that both parents should openly talk about their expectations. And you can do this crap, right, on a Saturday morning long before you're in the shit. It's a lot harder to try to be on the same page when you're in the shit, right? Consistency. Make sure you work on being consistent, even if you have differences, right? Like I talked about earlier, is there's times that I have had to cede ground to Nicole, so to speak, and she's had to cede ground to me. The worst thing ever is to emasculate a man, right, as he's trying to parent, or to disempower a woman as she's trying to parent, or it could be same sex, whatever that is, whatever the deal is. Do not disempower your partner as they're parenting. If it was a little rough, right, you could talk to them offline and be like, it would mean a lot to me if you could kind of shave that off a little, the edge next time. Or if it was a little too soft, you could be like, hey, I really appreciate you parenting there. However, it did sound like you negotiated the hell out of that situation and kind of disempowered yourself and allowed the kids to have way too much voice and choice in that outcome, when in fact we did set that standard and you should have held on to that. Please seek support. Obviously, Four Peaks Parents program is here. Go to the Four Peaks Parents, fourpeaksparents.com, and check out how you could be a part of this community. There's so many ways in the show notes at the bottom of the description of this episode. There's the ways to join the newsletter where you can get tips, tools, strategies free right to your inbox all the time, right? So that we could just keep yourself sharp. Of course, keep listening to this podcast. And if you ever want to jump on a discovery call, that's free to see whether or not the Four Peaks Parents program, either on the individual side or the group model, is right for you. Feel free. You can book right through the website, fourpeaksparents.com. And ultimately, finally, be flexible, be willing to adapt, or find a middle ground that benefits your child and your family. I hope this was helpful. Stay in the fight, y'all. Thank you so much,
Stay
Nicole.
in the fight. You're
And
welcome.
we will
Thank you
keep
for having me.
failing forward,
Woohoo.
falling into old patterns, but getting out a hell of a lot faster. And we're also choosing some new streets as of late, too, which has been great.
Yeah, new streets are good.
Yeah.
Discover new things.
Exactly. All right. Peace out, y'all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, everyone. Thomas here. First off, it means the world to me that you took the time to listen to my podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, if you want to receive the latest podcast updates, as well as expert parenting tips and practical strategies for navigating your tween, teen, or young adults challenges directly to your inbox, then sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. And most importantly, if you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, stuck, stressed, and are losing sleep because you're constantly worried about your tween, teen, or young adult, your first step is to realize that you still have a choice and can do something about it. I'm ready to help you take action and create the results you desire today. Just go to fourpeaksparents.com and book a free strategy call. Let's do this. Last thing, while you were listening to this show, who was the one person that you thought could really benefit from hearing it? Please share it with them.